politics in and out of the colonies. So we're looking at basically a lot more government and political structures, especially their relationship with England here. So the thing is, during the most of that 17th century, the 1600s, when we look at the ties between the American colonies or the British colonies, which we're going to start seeing this shift over to, I start using the term American colonies because they're starting to get their own identity during this time period. I'll really shift over to that after exam 1. So the British colonies, their ties to their motherland, England, is really more through trade and its commercial ties rather than actual like political ties and governance. Really, during the 1600s, each colony is basically governing itself. And in fact, most political activity is more at like the town or even county level. It's very small potatoes, so to speak. And most people had very little time or interest in politics. They were more concerned about, surviving to the next year. Even when we look at the kings of England, like we saw Charles II, the King of England in 1660, he has very little interest in the colonies except for as, this is a source of land and government office that I can reward my followers with. However, this is going to change with King James II in 1685. Basically, he wanted the British Empire to be even more grand than previously, and he also wanted it to be a lot more susceptible to England's control. So basically, he's going to reorganize a lot of the governing structures, including that of the structures over in the British colonies. He would combine colonies into about 3 or 4 large provinces, appoint powerful governors then to carry out policies that he would make. So he's directly, reigning over the colonies a bit more now. The thing is, this is a huge change in governance, and people don't tend to love this kind of change. On top of that, King James II would then go on to convert to Catholicism. Keep in mind, it wasn't that long ago that the King of England, who was being a bit too Catholic, was beheaded. So this is a big deal. Now, English Protestants were a little concerned, but it wasn't too much of a problem. And then King James II, his queen, bore him a son who was then baptized to be Catholic. Now it's a much bigger deal because they're not just going, our king is Catholic. They're going, the next generation might be Catholic as well. And this is in 1688. So when this happens, Parliament leaders over in England would invite King James, his Protestant daughter Mary, and her husband William of Orange, who was actually the stateholder of the Netherlands, to basically come in and take over the throne of England. So in 1688, you get the Glorious Revolution. This is when King James II flees to France and William lands. It's virtually a bloodless revolution, thus why it's known as the Glorious Revolution. Now, simultaneously that this is going on in England, we have to look at the British colonies. What happens in, for instance, Massachusetts is Bostonians would overthrow Governor Andros. He had been chosen to be the governor of the vast region from Maine all the way down to New Jersey by James. Andros had really antagonized the British colonists by doing things like he had rigidly enforced the Navigation Acts. Remember, that system only works as long as, smuggling kind of happens. So it wasn't happening as much. He had done things like limited towns to only one annual meeting. He had challenged property titles. He had remodeled the law courts. He levied taxes on the colonists without their consent. The thing is, the British colonists, when they overthrew Andros, they'd hoped they would get to go back to their original charter back from 1629. But instead, we're going to see the new king is going to basically issue a new parliamentary charter in 1691. Under this new charter, Massachusetts, we're going to see, which, by the way, now includes the, previously it was separate Plymouth colony, so now it's all just one colony, Plymouth and Massachusetts together. The colonists were no longer electing a governor, so still the monarch is appointing the governor of the colony. Voters over in the British colonies no longer had to be church members, And in fact, religious toleration would be extended to all Protestants. So that whole freedom of religion idea, we can see how it's already starting, although it's only to all Protestants. So keep that in mind. This really ends the exclusive Puritan control in Massachusetts, and it would restore political stability. I should also mention the whole Salem witchcraft trials and everything, that occurs actually in 1691 through 1692. The thing is, that was right around the time Andros was in charge and everything, and he lacked a legally established government. There was that whole atmosphere of uncertainty, and this probably helped cause the Salem witch trials. There's a whole lot of politics involved that people of different political beliefs were blaming people from the other political belief of being a witch and everything. Also, on top of that, it turns out there was a particular mold that was growing on some of their wheat when it got wet in Salem, and this moldy wheat probably caused hallucinations. So it didn't really help that these hallucinations probably helped, gear the Salem witch trials as well. I should also mention down further south in Maryland, Protestants are going to use William and Mary's ascension onto the throne to lobby an end of the Catholic proprietorship for the Calvert family. The Calvert family is going to lose their governing powers at this time, but they are going to retain their rights and to like these huge quantities of land. So they have power in that they own land and everything like that. What's really important here, though, is when we're looking at the colonists and their rejection of like Governor Andros and everything like that, they're really rejecting here King James II. They're not rejecting English authority. And in fact, their rejection is more so geared towards an anti-Catholic sentiment than it is about like politically England. So kind of keep that in mind. But what is the legacy that comes out of this? The thing is, first of all, with the Glorious Revolution, this signals a return to political stability in 1689. From there, Parliament over in England is going to pass the Bill of Rights. This is going to basically justify King James's ousters, and it would bound future monarchs to abide by the rule of law. So the king is no longer above the law anymore. They specifically said things like he could not suspend statutes, collect taxes, engage in foreign wars, maintain a standing army without Parliament's consent. And on top of that, they would say that parliamentary elections and meetings are going to follow a regular schedule, and that basically the monarchy cannot interfere in the schedule, which previously the monarchy would interfere in the schedule in a way to exert power over Parliament and everything. So basically, with the Bill of Rights and everything, in England, Parliament is essentially claiming that they are the Crown's equal partner in governing England. And on one hand, this is a huge deal because this means a representative government has basically triumphed in the aftermath of the Glorious Revolution. The other thing, though, is that Parliament, as part of this triumph, has full authority over the colonies. And they did not recognize the colonies' assemblies as their equal. However, as much as they didn't recognize the colonies' assemblies as their equal, they're not going to really vigorously assert that they have this authority for over half a century, which is only problematic because it basically left the colonies on their own during much of the early 18th century, and this allows, the colonies to grow in wealth, population, and self-government. And so the British colonies that are going to come to be the American colonies are basically encouraged to assume that they must have equal reign over their own, self-government as the English Parliament does. So I ask you this question as part of your journal. Why is this important? Or really, how does this impact us today? Because if you're explaining how it impacts you today, that's why it's important. The other part of this This is part of your discussion. I want I will make sure to let you know which colony you are kind of assigned to as a group. I want you to kind of create an advertisement with your group as best as you can through the discussion board of why should someone come to your colony? What makes your region of the English colonies like the best? What makes other parts the worst? Make sure to think outside of the box. Just because like we don't view it as a positive now doesn't mean it wasn't a positive then. So kind of keep about like this is more about what is drawing people into your colony. What could you advertise about?